Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Irene. First, it's a great pleasure to be here. I would love to be presently with you all in the event, but unfortunately, that's not possible. So let's try to make up the most of this experience. It's a great honor to be able to be here to talk about my activist work on creation of inclusive spaces in science. So I'm going to be talking about this theme, and I'm a computer scientist, a quantum computer scientist, so my perspective will be coming from that field. Before we start with data and hard facts, because it's early in the morning, I want to ask you my first question, which is, I cannot see the polls, wait a moment. Just checking there, you can see them? So yeah, you can see the question, I think. So my first question is, have you ever felt that you do not belong in your field of research or in your research community? So that's the question. Now you close your eyes, connect to your emotions and answer it. Okay, we have 11 votes and it's converging, I believe. 23 votes. Oh, wait, this is quite polarized. Let's wait a few more seconds just in case we have some internet lag. And I think it has converged 31. Since we're a bit slow, I'm gonna get some coffee. Okay, the majority of the answers seem to be inclined to yes. They have felt that they do not belong to the field of research or the research community, with 50% saying no. And myself, I have often felt that I do not belong to my field of research. So we'll come back to this throughout the talk, but this was just a warm-up. So let me start with a bit of introduction about myself. I like to introduce myself in talks. I am a queer trans woman. I work on the field of quantum computation, quantum information and foundations. For those of you who don't know what this is a field between physics and mathematics and computer science. And I'm a theoretical quantum information scientist. I do a lot of math and algorithms. And this field is about using quantum phenomena, microscopic quantum effects, to enhance the performance of computers or information systems or algorithms. And I also try to think about the foundational questions of this field. And I'm Spanish. I have lived abroad the world in many places. This is a map of the places where I lived and worked in Europe. I've also lived briefly in North America. I was born in Spain and I moved to Germany for my PhD studies to Munich. There I started working as an activist in the PhD Net. The PhD Net is the network of PhD researchers of the Max Planck Society in Germany. And there we had created a quantum, an equal opportunity group there. I did a PhD there on quantum computing, and then I moved to Berlin, where I moved on to the different research and activist projects, and I'm gonna be talking about those projects today. Right now, I am in Granada. Granada is a city in the south of Spain. I am a Marie Curie Fellow and Athena 3i Fellow for 3 years, and these are my employers. I have to acknowledge them. And you can find me on the internet in most social media as Queen of Quanta. This is I don't want to make an advertisement about my group, mostly because I just moved here. I don't have a group, but people often forget application deadlines for positions. So I just want to remind you, if you're interested or know people who would be interested in working in quantum computing, that in Spain we have PhD and postdoc applications coming in November and December. In Granada, if somebody would be interested in coming here, we have 2 researchers working on quantum stuff, quantum computing, quantum information, algorithms, LGBTQ+, and ethics myself. And Daniel Manzano doing also quantum information, biology, and thermodynamics. This is my email. And if you have questions, please send them to me. Today, I'm not going to be talking about my research. I'm going to be talking about activism in science. So what I wanted to tell you today, a main take-home message is that I believe that we need to reclaim science for us, for the people. And this is my personal motivation for talking about creation of inclusive spaces. So I believe that the hegemonic model of science and technology promotes individualism and cooperativism. So we are trained to compete against each other, which is fairly, how do I say, this is fairly obvious in the system, but sometimes we forget about it. And I think this is also not my belief, but I think this is history and pretty obvious. I also think that there is plenty of evidence that the system that we have favors economic productivity, creation of a lot of papers, if you may want to call this, over societal advantage, and directly sharing results, directly creating a benefit for society. And also the system that we have in science and technology is entwined and has supported historically the system of colonial extraction. So I believe that the system is created biased towards favoring productivity instead of things that are good for us, for people and the planet. And eventually this leads to exclusion of a lot of us. The system excludes systematically women, people of color, LGBTQ plus people, people with chronic conditions, illnesses, and disabilities, and potentially more people, people who are non-normative, who have non-normative identities or non-normative bodies. And there is a lot of data about this. We had a lot of a huge discussion about gender in the gender session. And we understand that this is a very complex multifactorial process, and it happens through often hidden systemic barriers. Anyway, why does this happen in the end? I mean, it happens because of many reasons, but this system, hierarchical system, this notion of order and division of people, it enforces competition, and it helps in controlling the workforce. Because of the fact that we have this system working this way, it is easier to basically pay us lower salaries and worsen our working conditions. I'm going to elaborate a bit more on these points. I mean, there is lots of studies about inclusion and diversity, but it is well known that, for example, in my field, in physics, there is far fewer women professors than men professors. And the numbers are pretty bad. And this also happens for people of color, and it's particularly bad for Black African American people of color. But it happens across all, basically for everybody who is non-white. And it is known also that people with disabilities have lots of issues, face a lot of barriers to survive. This word is horrible, but survive in the field of research, science, and technology. Many of them leave, and we don't have. They are very underrepresented. Coming back to my last point, this is a survey report from the Maximum Society PhD.net. They do them very often every year, and they measure, for example, working conditions of PhD researchers. And here we often see that, in average, doctoral researchers in the Maximum Society work a lot, which is representative of what happens in the world, because this is a very huge network with 83 institutes and hundreds of people, that it has a huge amount of scientists, and it's very influential in the European Union. And for example, in the last year, they saw that doctoral researchers work 46 to 50 average hours per week on average, so that's close to 10 basically. And 83% of the doctoral researchers work more than what is specified in the contracts. Now, this is only one tiny thing. Like, you may also know that we work for free for journals. You may have worked on the weekends. You may have skipped holidays or not applied for them. And all of this is basically showing us that the system is very efficient at making us work more. And now this is the LGBTI session. And I would like to show something, a graph, which is not about diversity, but something else. It's more about inclusion, I believe. There was this study or report done by IOP in the UK exploring the workplace for LGBT plus physical scientists. And they asked several questions to measure how LGBT plus people feel at work in physics, which is my field. Anyway, and you can see this graph. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see. Well, they asked to queer scientists whether they were out at work. And as you can see here, these numbers, if you look at the right circle, gay men were 44% out. So that's less than half of the gay men at work. Lesbian women were only 38% out. And these are not great numbers given that the UK is a very inclusive country for LGBT people. And why are these people never ever talking about their partners at work? That's something that cisgender people, sorry, cis heterosexual people do. And now even more interesting is the numbers in the left. Like you check by pansexual or plurisexual people, only 14% of them are out of work, which is incredible given that this is one of the biggest, this is the biggest community within the plus spectrum. And if you check queer and questioning, this is the last category they asked, what queer and questioning. I guess there is a lot of people in there, but they are only 21% out. And I think these numbers are terrible. I think these numbers show that there is something wrong with the system. It's not only discriminatory, it's also hostile. Here comes my second question for you. And it's for you LGBT people, but not only for you LGBT people. There are many kinds of hidden things that we don't talk about at work. Some people have a disability which is invisible and they don't talk about it. Some people are in some closet that they have never spoken about at work. My question is any of you inside some closet at work? And I will reply the question. The question is, are you inside some kind of closet at work, something that really is important for your life and you never spoke about it to anyone? The balance is 67 to 33 right now. And it's converging to a lot of people saying yes, 63% right now, which is a lot. I'm sorry, people, if you need advice about how to deal with those emotions, you can always reach to contact me. I've been inside of a closet myself for many, many years. I was inside a closet as trans for, I don't know, 10 years at work. And I am still inside some closets myself. Like there are some things about my life I never talk about at work. So yeah, this actually shows, I think, that we have some serious concerns with our culture in science and technology. We are not talking about our own issues. Okay, so coming back to the beginning of my talk, I was telling you, I think we need to reclaim science, and science and technology are made by people. They use land resources. They have great potential for creation and destruction. They can bring us great good, but they can also be used for the evil. And for these reasons, they must be at the service of society and use land responsibly. And I think we basically, as people, have the right to ask for this. So a non-cooperative model of science cannot be good for society. Like if somebody asks you why should be science more cooperative, it's like, well, it's supposed to be for society. Why should it not be cooperative? And model that is cooperative or for society should not be exclusive. How can it be good for society if it's excluding people by principle? The scientific method requires humans, and they have to be representative of society. Otherwise, the scientific method is skewed. And also, it is a right to be accepted at work. So this lack of the equity, diversity, and inclusion that we see are symptoms of a broken model. And I think that main priorities for us activists and as people is to humanize the model of science and technology, or reclaim it for the people, and to politicize science. And here I can tell you an anecdote, something that inspired me a lot. I mean, during my PhD was social reforms or working condition reforms achieved by PhD researchers during my time as a PhD. In Germany, I remember when I was a PhD, the PhDNet sort of had a long fight to get contracts for all PhD researchers. Also, they fought the conception that we are students, and this was achieved by political action. Also, a lot of good and long-term work on writing good policies, but also political action in the streets and going to the media. And also in Spain, my country's PhD researchers also had long fights to basically get better working contracts, getting social insurances and things like this, also by political action. I have a tenure track or sort of a stabilization program at University of Granada. It was also achieved by people who engage in political action. So this is important. Anyway, all of this is big and abstract. What can we do? Where do we start? And sometimes, I mean, if you allow myself to tell a joke, if a mathematician is a machine that turns coffee into theorems, maybe an activist is a machine that turns emotional distress into transformative action. This is a meme, okay? Don't do it at home. You shouldn't see humans as processes or control or flowcharts. But anyway, when we are activists, there are many things that we have to fight against, and I think it's a good exercise to try to divide them into tiny pieces or things that we can do to basically move forward. And my tiny step to try to move forward right now, I think it's focused on events. So how can we reclaim science for the people? We have a big issue here is that we have been deprived from communities. And networking occurs in conferences. Like, where do you meet your field? You meet in conferences. We're an international gang. That's the place where you meet your pals. And conferences can be competitive, dehumanizing exclusionary spaces. We know they foster a culture of inequity, competition, individualism, and very often harassment. There is harassment at conferences, but it's not the main point of my talk. And as we know, they are focused on productivity, produce, results, impact factor. And we have often no space left to discuss issues of scientists as a community. So, as an example, in my field, a typical conference in a quantum information science, in the field of quantum information science, has 5 to 8% women invited speakers. This is just one metric. We don't have a lot of metrics, to be honest. And this is something that difficults our work. We don't have a lot of data. But anyway, we know that in prestigious, with quotation marks, conferences, there is about 5 to 8% women invited speakers. And my personal experience is that if you look at participants, 10 to 15% of women participants is common. My personal experience, again, is that you go to a conference room, a conference dinner, it's often the case that you find a woman corner. A woman corner is a geographical region within the conference dinner room where all women accumulate. And I don't know if you have ever seen something like that. They also often LGBT scientists and also other people who are non-normative cluster in that area. And it's kind of a strange human phenomenon for a conference to have. And I think it comes from the fact that sometimes we do not feel safe at conferences. And there are issues in conferences like harassment. So I think I have a last question here. Do I have another question from above that maybe hasn't been included? Yes, so here comes my last question for you, and it relates to this slide. Have you ever felt unsafe in a conference or research event? And now I don't ask included, I ask unsafe. Okay, I'm happy to see that now the majority seem to have always felt safe in events. We still seem to be having a decent worrying amount of people here that have felt unsafe at the conference, like a fourth of you, which doesn't sound cool. I've myself, I have a very mixed experience, but in many physics conference or computer science conference, I felt unsafe. And I have actually had, content warning harassment. I've had situations where I had a sexual harasser coming to hack me, an unknown sexual harasser, or psychological harassers coming to talk to me at conferences. No code of conduct, no policy on what happens if harassment occurs. And there are events in my field. Some of them happened during the American Physical Society. One of them was recently organized by IBM, where There is lots of men or some who are fairly aged. Women are scarce and they're young, and a lot of alcohol is served, and there might be some even it's clearly an unsafe environment, and they don't even have a code of conduct, and there are these type of events which are highly risky. And I don't know, these things should not, I don't know, events shouldn't be organized like this. They should be organized in a way that we all feel safe. So a challenge here is, can we build wholesome, inclusive science community? And I like to put the word wholesome here, because I think I deserve to have a wholesome workplace. And can we have spaces that are for research, but also for researchers, spaces that are for researchers also from underrepresented backgrounds, a place where we can talk about research, but also about community issues. So now, and all of this was my personal perspective. Now I'm going to tell you about this project I have with more people, and I'm going to now change talking about the project. And anyway, not every people in this project have the same motivation as me. I would like to acknowledge that. So now in the last years, I've been involved in organizing a quantum information conference, which is called QTERN. And we try to make it inclusive and try to make it a space to discuss community issues. So we organized this event for the first time 2 years ago. The next event is coming in November, 23, 27. Pay attention to that. It's going to be online, and the registration is free, although you have to register so that we can actually check who is coming. But it's free. And it's a workshop of quantum information, computation, and foundations. And right in the new edition, theory work and experimental work. And now we have very normal, usual things in a conference. We have invited talks, contributed talks, posters about our fields of research, standard type of talks. And then we have something which is kind of unusual. We have an awareness program. That's what we call it. And this is like a part of the program is dedicated to discussing community issues on like labor rights, equity, diversity, privilege, bias, implicit bias, I mean, or invisible barriers, health, safety, and responsible research, plus things that we may consider that we need to discuss. And anyway, the idea is to have an area of the program where we can discuss issues of scientists. We try to be a safe space. We aim to be at being a safe space for underrepresented, well, for everybody, but in particular for underrepresented groups in quantum science and technology, women, people of color, LGBTQ+, chronically ill people with chronic conditions, and we also try to offer travel support. This is our contact. And we organized our first event in Brazil in 2018. We took the following inclusivity measures. So I don't want to make a tutorial on how to organize an inclusive event, but I will try to tell you what we did and how it turned out. And I can give more data to anyone who is interested on how we did this. So we try to put accessibility measures, barrier-free building, microphones for people with audition issues, and we try to make video recordings of the talks to make them accessible online. We try to pick a location outside of the global north. We put gender-neutral bathrooms for people who need gender-neutral bathrooms, usually people with non-binary gender identities. Anyway, we want these spaces to be safe. We have anti-harassment protocols, or what is usually called a code of conduct. We offer travel aid. We collected cash to give money to people who couldn't come to the event. And we try to favor people from underrepresented backgrounds or people who needed more, like people who were unemployed. We split this evenly in this event between people who were international, people who were from Brazil, the place where the event was hosted, and people from South America, in order to basically promote people from the local areas. One of the motivations to go outside of the global north is because many conferences are usually in the global north, and the global south is underrepresented. We have awareness talks. I talked about that already, and we do not have affirmative action measures. We don't have quotas. It's something we have been working on. We haven't been able to come up with a decent proposal for an affirmative action program, and European Union discrimination laws make this particularly complicated. And anyway, what we do there now is raising the visibility of minorities and giving implicit bias guidelines to referees, which is not enough in my opinion, but it's what we managed to do now. Some results that we got, I believe I'm still on time. Otherwise, please somebody stop me. And so we don't have a lot of data. We only made one event, and we didn't we haven't yet collected a lot of statistics. So this is just some results that we got and some things that we thought are good signs. So in 2018, we had 114 participants. So that was good for us. Like the event didn't fail. That was actually our main goal, like having a conference that is different and surviving. We got 80 talk submissions. And in 2020, I mean, it's very hard to compare, but because this is now an online event, and I have to say it's an online event because of COVID, which I forgot. Originally, we planned to have it in India. And anyway, we had to move it to the online format because of the obvious issues with the pandemic. And we got 150 talk submissions, and these numbers are pretty decent in my field. Like I co-organized a different conference years ago. Like it's called TQC. It's one of the biggest conferences in quantum computing. And when I organized TQC, the numbers that we got range between 60 and 113 in 2016. They have grown because my research field seems to be growing, but we were very happy to have these numbers in our first event. We were aiming for 60 talks, basically. And so, I don't know, we didn't die automatically. Like, so this made us happy. I don't have many diversity statistics. I have statistics on gender balance. The participation was 31%, sort of 32% women, 4% non-binary people, and 65% men, changing between participants and speakers. Very similar in both cases. And as I said before, this is like not, I mean, we don't have full gender equality here. We have a gap. We have sort of a big gap. And it's about 2 to 3 times better than usually. And we did not put a lot of measures here. Like we did not put a lot of affirmative action measures, which I think, I don't know, this makes me positive to, I mean, it shows to me that just taking some measures to make the event more inclusive, wholesome, safe, the participation of minorities and women raises significantly. The travel aid program was very successful, actually too successful. We had about 130 travel aid submissions, which was way more than what we could give. And it tells us that there is lots of people who cannot physically travel to events. And this is an issue for scientists who cannot travel to events because they cannot engage in networking at science. So it was a huge number. Like, and as I said before, we only had like 36 grants. So this is a big issue with events that are physical. And we had very high satisfaction comparable to other events I've organized. And the highest satisfaction we got was with the awareness program, surprisingly. We were terrified that this was going to be very received by physicists and computer scientists, but people love it. They were absolutely engaged in the awareness discussions, like even more than in the science discussions. And maybe we can discuss more in the panel discussion, but I've seen similar numbers. This thing happening again at other events. And something that was important to me, like nice to me, like is that some scientists came to me during this event to tell me that for the first time they had felt that they belonged to a quantum information conference, coming back to my first question. And I was like, I wasn't seeing that coming, but that made my, I don't know, that for me was extremely nice. I don't know, that it made the whole thing worth for me. Now, I'm getting to the end of the time, so I'm going to wrap up. And just a few things about our next talk, our next conference. Our next conference is happening in November. You should register. The registration is not open yet. And I think you should register because if you don't like quantum talks, you can get something out of the awareness talks. Our community has grown significantly. We were 5 co-organizers at the beginning, and now we are all of these people. We have 7 main organizers that are doing a tremendous amount of work. They are the main workers of the event and the people who are putting, making the biggest effort. And we also have a bigger program committee. Diversity has raised among the committees. And this is a strange event for us because we organized the entire event for India. So we have a lot of Indian, we included a lot of Indian people here, and which is good. But anyway, I wanted to clarify that the representation that you see was kind of thought of for an Indian event. And the awareness program, which is what I advertised to you heavily, is, well, it's still under construction, but we already have a lot of confirmed speakers, and we have already some confirmed sessions. We have a session to discuss issues of the Black community in academia, and now I cannot see my own slides. So with Barbara Rosa, Carlos Parra, and Juan David González Calderón. We have a session to discuss safety in events or harassment, and with Sarah Kaiser and Tana Joseph, and a session about ethics and responsible research by Emma McKay. We have a session about disability in academia with Sophia Kuvafort, mental health session with Michelle Royer-Knowles and Zenaida Hernandez Santana, and a session on science and media by Tara Robertson. And we have some speakers coming. They are still not in the website. Pay attention to it. So with this, I conclude my talk. I would like to say some final remarks. I think diversity and inclusion in science and technology should be a goal. We often struggle to motivate why we need it, but I think we don't need to motivate it. It should be a goal by itself. I mean, we have the right to reclaim that science is for everyone. And we need inclusive science communities where we can work and build a fairer science. An important part of making a fairer science is making spaces where we can discuss, meet, and sort of find ways to transform science. I think it's important to make events, and this is why we are trying to basically work on making these new communities. We're trying to build an inclusive conference in quantum information, and so far it has been a lot of work, but we have had some successes. So one moral of my story is that you can make your events more inclusive. If you really think that your events are not inclusive enough in your field, you can certainly make them different. With this, I would like to thank you for your attention. Muchas gracias. And I welcome your questions now or later in the panel discussion.